if you are the president of China, or the prime minister of India, or the president of Brazil, and you are still trading with the Russians and getting the oil and the gas in, and you sometimes even resell it for a higher price, know that if this guy in Moscow doesn't get serious about peace talks, I will slam secondary sanctions on you.
The Secretary-General of the Western Military Alliance warned that countries like Brazil, China, and India, all BRICS members, could be severely hit by secondary sanctions if they continue trading with Russia.
Mark Rutte, Secretary-General of NATO, threatened Brazil, India, and China with a possible 100% tariff if these three countries continue buying fossil fuel derivatives from Russia.
In line with that sanctions bill, saying, listen, if you are the president of China, or the prime minister of India, or the president of Brazil, and you are still trading with the Russians and getting the oil and the gas in, and you sometimes even resell it for a higher price, know that if this guy in Moscow doesn't get serious about peace talks, I will slam secondary sanctions on you of 100%. So I'm sure they don't know yet what hit them. This will take some time to sink in, and I think you guys making this clear in the media, the senators maybe also discussing this with their counterparts in Brazil, India, China, will be very helpful to put maximum pressure on Russia in addition to the weapons delivery into Ukraine.
The threat occurred during Rutte's visit to the U.S. Congress, which is debating a bill aimed precisely at imposing tariffs on countries that buy oil and natural gas from Russia, products that are under U.S. government sanctions because of the war in Ukraine.
Well, first of all, this is an ongoing process. This is not just one package. So what NATO is good at is, together with the Ukrainians, through our command in Wiesbaden, to design packages which are maximum useful for Ukraine when it comes to air defense, when it comes to ammunition, when it comes to missiles. So this is what we will now be working on with the US. Of course, in a way that the US still has enough stockpiles for you to be able to defend yourselves, but also to massively make sure that Ukraine has what it needs. And this is also sending a strong signal to Moscow and to Vladimir Putin that he has got to take these peace talks seriously and get out this historian talking about history since 1250 and send a serious team to Istanbul.
This would happen if Vladimir Putin does not agree to a ceasefire within 50 days. The three countries mentioned by Mark Rutte today in the U.S. Congress are founding members of BRICS, along with Russia itself, of course. This threat adds to another one previously made by Donald Trump to sanction all BRICS member countries and supporters of BRICS policies, which he called anti-American, by 10%. Speaking to reporters, the NATO Secretary-General said the following, and I quote, "If you are the president of China, the prime minister of India, or the president of Brazil, and you are still doing business with the Russians and buying their oil and gas, know that if that guy in Moscow doesn't take peace negotiations seriously, I will impose 100% secondary sanctions against you." End quote. That guy in Moscow, in this case, refers to Russian President Vladimir Putin. In 2024, Brazil imported $5.4 billion worth of Russian diesel, making it one of the countries that imported the most of this fuel last year. Meanwhile, here in the United States, Donald Trump's tariffs are starting to be felt in consumers' wallets. The Consumer Price Index, released today, showed a rise in inflation during the month of June, going from 2.4% in May to 2.7% last month. The cost of rent contributed to the increase in inflation, but it wasn't the only factor. Clothing, for example, saw an increase of 0.4% in just 1 month, while toys, a sector that relies heavily on imports from China, experienced a 2% rise just from May to June. The rise in inflation is concerning because the higher tariffs announced in recent days, like the 50% one against Brazil, haven't even gone into effect yet. In other words, the outlook is that things will get worse for American consumers if Trump goes ahead with the trade war. The rise in inflation also suggests that the Fed, the American central bank, is unlikely to cut interest rates, which are already considered high by recent standards. Higher interest rates affect consumer spending and can cool down the country's economy. Donald Trump has been pressuring Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, to cut interest rates. However, this move is considered highly unlikely right now, given the uncertainty caused by the trade war started by the American president.